According to the Canadian Real Estate Association, tariffs don't matter, economic uncertainty, political unrest, and millions of mortgages coming up for renewal in 2025 because home prices in Canada are going up. Hey there, and welcome back to Bald Prairie Real Estate. My name is Matthew Pfeifer, real estate agent in Regina, Saskatchewan. That's my trusted assistant, 𝗬𝗲𝗍𝗬. This is the weekly news recap where I go through what I think are the most interesting Canadian real estate news topics, including this Canadian Real Estate Association updated forecast. I'm going to give you my thoughts and opinions on them. But of course, we got to start off with another one of my terrible bad dad jokes. I totally forgot it. For years now, I've been telling everyone about the benefits of eating dried grapes. It's all about raising awareness. Favorite terrible joke I can use in the future? Put it in the comments below. Let's get into this week's Canadian real estate news. Let's start off by looking at a report saying Calgary condo prices are going to double in the next 10 years. This is a forecast from 𝗬𝗲𝗃𝗃 looking at condo prices across Canada. And they're forecasting, in some cases, literally decades out, how long it's going to take the average condo in these cities to cross the $1 million barrier. Of course, basically all of these cities have seen at least one condo at some point, still over $1 million. So this is average price here. And they specifically talked about Calgary having one of the fastest price appreciation rates in Canada. They're saying that prices for condos in Calgary are going to increase at 7% per year. I wouldn't put any weight into a forecast that is literally decades out, but it is interesting. As with any forecast, please take it for entertainment value purposes. I do find it interesting looking at the list here as to what year average condo prices in these different cities will cross $1 million. In Vancouver by 2030, Toronto by 2031, Halifax by 2031. Yeah, I'm really not sure on that one. That seems awfully high. Ottawa by 2036, Calgary by 2041, and Regina by 2085. I'll be in my 90s by then. I guess I could retire to a $1 million apartment in Regina then. Let's get into the Canadian Real Estate Association's monthly stats, not to be confused with their forecast. That's coming up later. Quick look at the highlights here. Sales fell 6% month over month. They were up 19% versus last year. New listings down 2% month over month. The home price index, benchmark price, up 0.3%, and average price up 2.5% year over year. Now let's do a little bit of a deeper dive into some of these stats, at least what the ones I think are interesting. The October and November sales were quite strong, at least comparatively, and a lot of people were kind of feeling maybe this was the lead up into what was expected to be a busy spring market. Jury's still out on that. December, though, saw a very noticeable fall off in home sales. The Q4 sales in 2024 were well above 22 and 23 numbers, of course, nowhere near pandemic numbers. They were pretty much in line with the 2019 sales numbers as well. If you want to be part of the 2025 home sales stats as reported by the Canadian Real Estate Association because you are thinking about buying a house, if you're in Regina or moving to Regina, of course, I would love to help you out with that. But if you're somewhere else in the country and you don't already have a great real estate agent, well, if you look at the description of this video, there's a link to my calendar where you can book me in for a call. I will learn about what you're looking for in a real estate agent and handpick a fantastic real estate agent from my network just for you. Even with all of the excess inventory that we're seeing in Toronto and Vancouver, overall active inventory across the country is about 128,000 right now. That's below the long-term average, which is 150,000 homes for sale. Let's take a dive into average price. Personally, I prefer the benchmark price, but I know a lot of people talk about average price, so let's look at it. We started the year at $664,000. The peak for 2024 was $708,000. And we ended 2024 at $676,000. The all-time high for the national average price in Canada was February 2022. It was $826,000 at that time. It then bottomed out in January of 2023 at $620,000. That means as of today, peak to trough, if that ends up being the trough, prices are down about 28% from that time frame. They have then come up 9% since they bottomed out there. Today to that peak, that's down about 20%. Of course, the national average price and what's happened with it is completely meaningless when you look and break things down city by city. Calgary, Halifax, Edmonton, Saskatchewan, Montreal, and a few other cities have home prices higher today than even the peaks of 2022. And interestingly enough, looking at the provincial stats here again, only Ontario has a year-over-year decrease for the average home price. Here's an article from Canadian Mortgage Trends talking about all the mortgages that are going to renew by the end of 2026. According to their information, 60% of all mortgages in Canada are set to renew by the end of 2026, and 60% of those mortgages, 40% of all the mortgages in Canada, will see payment increases. Have I told you I really like percentages? They're kind of fun. Saying 60% of mortgages set to renew by the end of 2026 by itself sounds like a big scary number. It is higher than normal. Typically, about 20% of mortgages renew every year, meaning in the next 2 years, we would expect to see 40% of mortgages renew. Having 60% of mortgages renew means we have essentially 3 years worth of mortgages coming due in the next 2 years. Higher than normal, maybe not quite as scary as saying 60%. Of course, the internet is always talking about how these mortgage renewals are going to cause sellers to be forced to sell their houses because they're distressed with the higher payments, and that'll of course flood the market with inventory and home prices will come tumbling down. You know how the story goes. But as I said earlier in this article, only 40% of those renewals will see a higher payment, meaning less than half of the people renewing their mortgages in the next 2 years will actually have a payment increase. But there is one line in this article that I think is really important. I'm going to read it to you here. However, it adds that many of these borrowers have ample flexibility to manage any payment shocks thanks to having paid down part of their principal over the past 5 years, as well as potential increases in home value over that time. This is something I've talked about many times before. People aren't just going to get these higher renewals and go, oh, I guess I can't afford this house anymore and I'm forced to sell it now. They're going to have options. We've already had a little bit of a preview of what to expect in 2025 and 2026 as these mortgages renew. Just last year, about 20% of all mortgages in Canada were renewed, and for the most part, they renewed into higher interest mortgages, meaning their payments went up. Yes, we saw more inventory come to the market. Yes, we saw distressed sellers being forced to sell their houses. We also saw increase in foreclosure, power of sale, and mortgage arrears all trending up. But to say it was a wave of distressed sellers, I think is very inaccurate, and home prices went up in 2024. One other really interesting little nugget of information here is that negative amortizations down to about 12%. I'm anticipating by the end of 2025, that will probably be near zero. What's going on with mortgage interest rates in Canada? Let's find out. Last week, I had a little inside information for you about what was happening with mortgage interest rates. It sounds like the lenders are already telling them to expect 10 to 15 basis point jumps in their rates. Starting off with insurable mortgages, the best 3-year was 4.34 through Radius, that is up. The best 5-year fixed is also through Radius at 4.29, and that went up as well. Looking at 5-year variable rates, the best static variable 4.5% through Manulife, that's unchanged. The best adjustable is 4.45 through Marathon, and that is also unchanged. And here's what's going on with uninsurable mortgages. The best 3-year 4.74 through Scotiabank, that's unchanged. The best 5-year was 4.64% through B2B Bank, that is actually a slight drop. And here is the best 5-year variable rate mortgages. For a static variable, 4.9% through Scotiabank, unchanged. And the best adjustable, 4.75 through B2B Bank, that is actually a slight drop. Here's the best 5-year insurable mortgages through the big 5 banks. In first place, Bank of Montreal, 4.45%, unchanged. CIBC comes in at second, 4.59%, unchanged. In third, RBC, 4.59%, unchanged. Fourth place, Scotiabank, 4.69%, unchanged. And rounding things up in fifth place, 4.99% through TD, that is an increase. Looking at the 5-year Canada bond rate, which was starting to trend up going into the week, which is why a lot of lenders were saying they were going to be increasing rates, started off at 3.2%, got all the way up almost to 3.3%, but since midweek has been trending down, now down to 3% as of the time of recording. I'm kind of anticipating if this holds going into the weekend that we might see some of those rates that increased this week drop back down. Now let's dive into the Canadian Real Estate Association's 2025 forecast for the Canadian real estate market. I can sum up this forecast in basically one sentence. If absolutely nothing bad happens in 2025, the Canadian real estate market will probably be fairly strong. And you know what? If absolutely nothing bad happens in 2025, I would agree with that forecast. And there's really nothing on the horizon that would be bad for the Canadian economy coming up.
President-elect Trump has just announced that starting on day 1 of his administration, he'll charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tax for all products coming into the United States, all in caps there.
There's basically 2 main points the Canadian Real Estate Association has here. The first one is that there's 2 years worth of pent up buyers that have been sitting on the sideline, and now that interest rates have dropped, they're gonna jump back into the market. We've heard this before, haven't we? Personally, I see two sides to this. Yes, there are some buyers that are sitting on the sideline waiting for an opportunity, and they very well may decide to make a purchase in 2025. But saying there's 2 years worth of pent up demand, I think is rather misleading and in many ways inaccurate. The low sales we've had through 2023 and 2024 are partially due to the ultra low interest rates of 2021 and 22. That brought demand forward, where buyers that maybe would have waited till 23 or 24 instead bought in 2021 and 22. So they've now bought. They're not pent up demand. They also mentioned the Bank of Canada signaling that this may be the end of the rate cutting cycle. And so buyers are going to jump back into the market thinking that interest rates won't get any lower than they are right now. We've also had the Bank of Canada signal before that don't worry, interest rates will remain low for a very, very long time. And of course, we all know how that went. In this forecast, the Canadian Real Estate Association also doesn't account for such things as potential tariffs in 2025. I can understand on one hand why they wouldn't talk about that. I can also understand on the other side where they probably should talk about that. In my 2025 forecast video, I will be touching on this and my reasons why I will or will not be including it in my forecast. The Canadian Real Estate Association updates these every quarter, so there's a new one coming out in April. And of course, if something maybe bad happens in the meantime, that'll be reflected in that forecast, hopefully.
I'm gonna do it.
But if absolutely nothing bad happens in 2025, home prices in Canada will increase almost 5% nationally, and sales will jump up 4.5%. Now, I'm going to let you in a little secret because you've watched the video to this point. In my 2025 predictions video, I'm putting one of those predictions in my not so likely to happen category. I'll let you guess which one. But of course, national prices are absolutely meaningless in the grand scheme of things, so let's look at their regional forecasts. BC up 2%, Alberta up 8%, Saskatchewan up 6%, Manitoba up 4%, Ontario up 2%, Quebec up 8%, New Brunswick up 5%, Nova Scotia up 5%, PEI up 4%, and Newfoundland up 7%. There you have it. As long as nothing bad happens in 2025, the Canadian Real Estate Association is predicting home prices in every province in Canada will increase, including Ontario, up 2%. I want to know what your predictions are. Let me know in the comments below. What do you think, whether you want to break down regionally or nationally, where home prices are going in 2025? And then you should watch my monthly Canadian Real Estate Market Update if you haven't already. And as always, please give this video a like, and thanks very much for watching.